John, we spoke at TPM 25 at Long Beach. What was it, about 6 weeks ago? I mean, I'm in my head, it feels like a million years ago already in terms of trade policy and my job. But for you, it must have been even more perturbing or chaotic. You've been advising your retailer members, I presume, and lobbying. Please give us your view on how you view that time period. I mean, and how it's affecting your members. It must be very resource intensive, juggling all this extra paperwork and working your way around this changing tariff landscape. Obviously, the intro I called it Tariff On, Tariff Off. Please give us your perspective.
Thanks, Mike. It certainly has been a busy few weeks. I think busier than anybody expected it to be. Lots of moving pieces, lots of tariff discussion, lots of executive orders, lots of CSMS messages out of customs, and still lots of confusion about what exactly is going on and how the tariffs are being applied. So I think we got to break it down into a couple of different buckets. When the president was elected, obviously he talked a lot about tariffs, and there was a lot of concern about tariffs being enacted on day one, January 20th, on Inauguration Day. I think there was a bit of relief when he signed the America First Trade Policy memo that basically outlined how he was going to arrive at the different tariffs in different areas. Unfortunately, he kind of veered away from some of that by announcing and launching different tariffs in advance of any of those reports coming due in early April. Obviously, we had the initial IEEPA tariffs on Canada, Mexico, and China over the immigration and fentanyl related issues. They went on China. They were delayed on Canada and Mexico. We thought, come March, they were going to be delayed once again on Canada and Mexico because of what they had been offered on addressing some of the border issues. Unfortunately, they were put into place. And at that point, China's tariffs were then up to 20%. Within a couple of days, we then had a kind of rollback of USMCA qualifying goods that would not be hit with the 25% tariffs on Canada and Mexico. Since then, we've also had sectoral tariffs launched on steel and aluminum. The bigger concern here is the fact that they included derivative products and have made it very difficult for companies to understand how to value the steel or aluminum within the product itself to capture the tariff. And we're still waiting on specific guidance for folks to understand how to do that.
So that could even be like a can of beer, couldn't it?
Yeah, well, they've added beer and empty bottles to the tariff list for steel and aluminum. So they've put 25% tariffs now on beer and aluminum cans. But we've also got investigations on lumber and timber and their derivative products. So furniture and paper products on copper. We had the Liberation Day announcement on April 2nd of the global 10% tariff on everybody. And then the reciprocal tariffs taking effect on April 9. So the global tariffs took effect on April 5th, then April 9th, which we'll see the reciprocal tariffs with the higher rates on about 60 different countries. That got changed, right before they were supposed to go into effect. They decided to pull back and just maintain the global 10% tariff for a 90-day pause while there are ongoing trade negotiations with a variety of countries. But unfortunately, they kept the tariffs on China and even increased them now up to 125% because of China's retaliation. So the base rate from China now is essentially 145% because when you take the reciprocal tariff plus the original IEEPA tariff, that's 145, plus 301 tariffs, plus whatever your base MFN rate is. So you've got some folks that are up close to 190% tariffs. In addition to that, we had the auto tariffs that were announced. We now have investigations into semiconductors and pharmaceuticals. Ag is on the way. And oh, by the way, we just announced that we're eliminating the tomato suspension agreement with Mexico. So we're going to have 21% tariffs on tomatoes effective July. So lots of tariff announcements that are out there, and we can kind of dive into each one. But it's a lot that companies are dealing with right now, trying to figure out how this all works and the stacking nature of a lot of these different tariffs as well, which has been a huge concern for people.
Just on one of those, John, you mentioned
Yes.
there the 145% tariff that was on China. We think, and we're not quite sure how it all stacks up exactly. But then last Friday, April the 11th, there seemed to be an exemption on smartphones and computers and other electronics. Do we know when that came into force? Because I was
Yeah,
trying to check
so
out exactly when that came to force. That's from Hong Kong and China, isn't it?
correct. So there was a message that came out from CBP, a CSMS message that came out late Friday night that said certain consumer electronics products were to be reclassified or provided under the exemption of semiconductor products. When you looked at the reciprocal tariff order that came out, there were 6 or 7 different categories of products where the reciprocal tariff didn't apply because those products are subject to either an ongoing Section 232 investigation or will be subject to an upcoming Section 232 investigation. So what they did is they took some of those consumer electronics products and then put them under the semiconductor basket. And that investigation was just announced yesterday. So while they might have gotten a reprieve from the 125% tariff, they will likely be subject to whatever tariff is agreed to under the Section 232 investigation on semiconductors, 25% or more. But that investigation is now underway. So
With
I
a
don't necessarily say
timeline? Do we
exclusion.
have a timeline on that investigation?
I think it was just announced. I think they're looking for comments within 21 days. I think that was the timeline. I think it's in the Federal Register notice now. I haven't had a chance to look at it just yet, but it's moving quick. I mean, if you look at how all the other tariffs have gone into effect, they move very quickly through these investigations.
So it could happen at any point.
Probably within the next 30 to 60 days potentially.
Okay, yeah, but which is if you're shipping into the US, you either do it very, very quickly if you're shipping electronics, or you don't.
But the challenge is, I mean, as you noted, we had the customs notice that came out on Friday night, but we were waiting to see the official executive order that what it ties to, and I don't think that got published until yesterday. So again, lots of confusion about what happened, why it happened, and what comes next.
It is very confusing. You're speaking to shippers all the time. I mean, for some of them, they must be in this point where they're, do I stick or twist? Do I gamble and import and get caught with tariffs? I mean, people must be getting caught between rocks and hard places all the time.
Yeah, I mean, they're certainly trying to figure out what's going on, especially with this 90-day pause, not knowing what happens at the end of 90 days. I mean, do these reciprocal tariffs go back in? I mean, take a look at some of the countries, Vietnam with a 46% tariff rate. I mean, that's significant, especially for, apparel and footwear. Folks moved out of China specifically because of what happened, back during the first Trump administration because of the Section 301 tariffs. A lot of them moved to Vietnam, but now they're going to get hit, with these huge tariffs because they made that move. They're all trying to figure out now, kind of what's next. Where can they go? But I think you and I have talked previously, it takes time to redo your supply chain to move. It takes months, if not years, and trying to figure out where can I go that's not going to be subject to these massive tariffs. It is a challenge for everybody. And again, as we're now looking at everybody ordering their holiday merchandise, trying to figure out what are they actually supposed to do? How are they supposed to order? What are going to be the price points that they order at? Anything coming out of China, can they pass along 145% plus tariff rate? Probably not, especially if you're a small business.
I just want to dive into the electronics there and where the sort of limbo that's in. Mainland China accounted for 81.1% of US imports of smartphones, 66% more or less of laptop computers, 14 or so percent of components, and a bunch of other stuff. That's according to S&P Global Market Intelligence data. So it's a lot of imports. Now, the president said that these exemptions were brought in so that companies would have time to move production to the US. As you said there, previously they were told Vietnam would be fine, China +1 would work. Chris Rogers, head of supply chain research at S&P, says that fully moving supply chains for phones and computers to the US was pretty much impractical in less than 3 years. So the time scale and the messaging on all of this makes it really difficult for anyone to make a decision, even if it's about bringing it back to the US, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I mean, look, you've had some announcements by some companies about, ramping up their U.S. production. I think NVIDIA talked yesterday about bringing back semiconductor production here in the United States, but that's years away. That's not something that can get turned on overnight. So I think folks are looking to figure out how best to make that happen. I think everybody's looking, how do we shift away from China or do the China +1, +2? but it takes time. It's not something that can be done overnight. Again, there's so many factors that go into the ability to move your supply chain. Is there the right capacity where you're looking? Do they have the right workforce? Do they have the infrastructure in place? Do they have logistics in place? I mean, all that takes time. And then having to go and validate that the factory is who they say they are. They meet all the different testing requirements. They meet your quality requirements. I mean, all that stuff takes a lot of time to do it. So, a 90-day pause is not enough time for folks to completely shift their supply chains. Again, when these orders are placed, 6, 9, 12 months in advance, it's a challenge.